Welcome to the Caitos Nutrition Show. This is episode 5, and in this podcast we are going to talk about the 5 biggest mistakes that I see people making in gyms. I've been going to gyms for 35 years, from one end of the country to the other, and it never ceases to amaze me what I see people doing in gyms. I would say respectively that 90% of people don't know what they're doing in a gym. So number 1 would be improper form. I see people doing things that I can't even guess what they're doing them for. I don't know where they got them, from a buddy, off of the internet, a book. I don't know, but they're risking injury, and they're not even working the intended muscle. So improper form is probably the biggest thing I see, the biggest mistake I see people making in gyms, and that's tied into number 2, which is using momentum, which is causing improper form. So if you think about an exercise, you have 3 parts to every exercise movement. You have a positive, which is the eccentric part. You have a contraction, which is holding the weight there in a controlled fashion for half a second to a second. Then you have the lowering, or the concentric, or the negative part of the movement. And every single exercise you do has those 3 parts to the movement. So if you look at people that do barbell curls, they're swinging the weight up using their legs and lower back. They're robbing their biceps of tension, okay? People that load the bar up with doing a bench press, they literally drop the weight, arch their back, and try and bounce it off their chest, okay? They're using momentum, and what momentum does is it makes things easier. And that's the last thing we want to do, is make something easier. We want to make it harder, okay? And you're robbing the muscle of the benefits from exercise. I'll tell you a quick story that happened to me last year. I was training a client in a gym, actually at a rec center, and I was explaining to my client about proper form, how important it is, and about not using momentum, and that momentum makes things easier, and we don't want that. We want to tax the muscle and not the joint. So there was a lady doing leg extensions, an older lady, and she was just doing them very, very fast, just up and down and up and down and up and down. No focus on the positive, the contraction, or the negative. And I told my client, I said, look at that lady. She's just doing that horribly wrong. I said, but watch this. And I walked over to the lady that was doing leg extensions, and I waited till she was finished. And I asked her a question. I says, ma'am, do you mind if I ask you a question? She says, no, go ahead. And I said, why were you doing your exercise like that, so fast, up and down and up and down? She said, well, because it's easy. And I said, okay, that's all I needed to hear. And I walked back to my client, and I told her the question I asked her, and she said, what did she say? And I said, she does it that way because it's easy. And that's why most people use momentum, because it makes things easier. And that's the last thing we want, is we want to make things harder. We want to make the muscle work and risk injury. That's how injuries occur, by bouncing, thrusting, jerking. That tears muscles and can tear a ligament or a tendon also. So improper form is number 1. Number 2 is momentum. And number 3 would be people using too much weight. And I know you've all seen it. They load the squat bar up, they go down about 6 inches, and they come up. And it kind of resembles a dance move. It's comical. I don't know how or why or who told them to do it that way, but it's a good laugh. I laugh when I see people doing it, and they have legs that appear that they've never been worked the right way. But they've got 400 pounds on a squat bar, so they've got bragging rights. So the right way to do it is to lessen the weight, and if you can't go to parallel, then lessen it even more. You want to go to at least parallel. I don't go ass to calf, some people do, but at least go to parallel. So so back to too much weight. you can really use too much weight with any type of exercise. If it's a lateral raise, swinging the weight up. If it's a bent over row, just not holding that weight at the top for a second. And basically, that's a good rule of thumb. If you can't contract it for half a second to a second and lower it in a controlled fashion, then lessen the weight. Okay, so number 4 would be too much talking. Too much talking goes on in gyms, either on the cell phone, with your buddy, with your girlfriend. Save it for before the gym or after the gym. But number 1, I don't want to hear you talk, especially on your cell phone. Number 2, it's distracting to me. And number 3, you're only hurting yourself. You're losing that focus, that concentration, that mind to muscle connection that is just vital in a gym. So if I had a gym, the first rule I would have would be no cell phones. And Planet Fitness even has this rule where you can't have cell phones on the floor. I have a life, I have a wife, I have a job, I have a family, and I have lots of things going on. But you know what? That hour and 15 minutes that I'm in a gym, whatever or whoever can wait. It'll be there as soon as I get out in my car. And that's people, I've seen people just sit on benches and just talk nonstop on their cell phone. And number 1, I want to use the piece of equipment. But number 2, it's distracting to me. And it's like, you know what? Go home and talk. There was an incident that I had with somebody that was standing. I wanted to use the cable crossovers, and he was standing there forever just on his cell phone. And I kind of made eye contact. I gave him the body language, and he's still on his cell phone. And finally, I went up to him, and he said, "Yeah, what do you need?" I said, "Well, I need the piece of equipment." He said, "Well, I'm on the phone." I said, "I get that. That's why I'm here. Go stand over there and talk on the phone." And he looked at me like, who are you to tell me that? But it almost provoked an argument or a altercation. But anyway. Here's another story. It was in the gym about a month ago, and I happened to go there a little bit earlier, and it was busy. There was probably 15, 20 people that were around the dumbbell area, and I work out with headphones on, and I'm blasting my music, and I can't hear people talk, but I took my headphones out of my ears for a second, and it sounded like I was in a nightclub, nonstop talking and joking and laughing, and I wanted to scream, "Shut up! Shut up and work out. That's what you're there for." But they were mostly young kids, and it probably would have, again, provoked a fight or an altercation. But I just put my headphones back in, and it explained why they looked like they look. Because they were there for more socializing than actual working out. So way too much talking in a gym and cell phone usage. Number 5 would be people doing the wrong exercises or non-productive exercises. What I do with my clients is I teach them the most productive exercises that are going to benefit them. So when you have your hour and 15 minutes in a gym, you want to ask yourself, okay, there's 10 different back machines, 10 different chest machines, 10 different leg machines. What do I do? Well, this is a very individual thing, but you want to stick with compound movements, basic compound movements. And a compound movement is an exercise that involves more than one muscle group. So your pull-ups, your chin-ups, your bench presses, your squats, your barbell rows, your barbell curls, tricep push-downs, those are all exercises that are very, very productive. The opposite would be isolation movements, which have their place, but if you're looking to touch up a certain area of the muscle, or maybe close to contest time, or you can't do certain angles, they have their place, but for the most part, you want to stick to compound movements. You want to do exercises that are the most productive for you within that hour and 15 minutes of working out. The other thing I want to touch base on is a little bit of gym etiquette. And these are things that people do in gyms that I have seen or experienced that just they shouldn't be doing. And they're kind of unwritten rules that should be written so people don't do them. But the biggest thing is probably not putting your weights back. Okay, there are some gyms that will actually fine you if they catch you doing this, and that's a really good rule because number one, I'm not your maid, and I don't want to have to put back 15 plates on the leg press. And if there's a female or an older person that can't lift the 45s, you know, they shouldn't have to do that. So if you're strong enough, and if you take the time to load up a bar or a machine, then just take them off when you're done. That's it. It's real easy, real simple. Put your weights back. Another thing that I see people doing that's just, like I say, an unwritten rule, it's just gym etiquette, is when you're in front of a mirror doing an exercise and somebody gets in front of you, don't do that. Okay? Mirrors are great tools to use in gyms. They're there to watch your form and to make sure you're doing an exercise correctly. Yeah, you're going to get people taking their selfies and staring at themselves and posing in front of mirrors, and that's okay. But if you see somebody doing an exercise 6 or 8 feet from a mirror, don't walk in front of them and don't stand in front of them and block their view. It's just wrong. It's rude and it's disrespectful. And I'll tell you a quick story, what happened to me. This was last year sometime. I had a knee issue, and I was on a hack squat, and I had to see my form. It was very important for me to watch exactly how far I went down and make sure that my knee, felt good from doing that a certain way. And the only way I could tell was by looking at myself in the mirror doing the movement. So all of a sudden this kid comes in front of me and he starts doing bent over barbell rows just right in front of me. So I waited until I finished. I finished my set and then waited until he was done. And I walked up to him and I said very respectfully, "Hey pal, what you did was wrong." And he looked at me like, "What?" And I said, "I know you're young and you don't get it and you haven't been in gyms for a long time, but it's just etiquette. It's etiquette not to get in front of somebody that's using a mirror, watching them do an exercise in front of a mirror." And I told him I have a knee issue and I was watching myself and you just blatantly got in front of me. And I'm only telling you this so you don't piss the wrong person off. I'm telling you this so you learn to not do it again. And he didn't say anything. He just looked at me like, go screw yourself. So about a week later, a friend of mine comes up to me and he said, "Hey man, did you get in a beef last week in the gym with somebody?" And I said, "No, I didn't." And he said, "Well, man, this kid posted something on Facebook, you just annihilating you." And I said, "Oh no, are you kidding me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, there was no altercation. I just told him, hey, don't do that for the future, getting in front of somebody that's in front of a mirror." And I guess he took it as me being just mean or rude or just a jerk. And he said, "Here, you want to see what he wrote on Facebook?" And I says, "No, I don't want to see it because then the next time I saw him, it probably wouldn't be a good meeting." But those are just some rules, unwritten rules of etiquette that I see in gyms. And on top of that, the 5 biggest mistakes that I see in gyms. So hopefully people that are doing can stop doing them and learn by them. I'm telling you this constructively, respectively, and just trying to prevent you from wasting time in a gym, focusing more on what you're doing there, and your results and progress are going to improve from that. So I hope you learned something from this podcast, and there'll be many more following this. And hopefully you can apply some of the knowledge that I share, and you can definitely get a lot more of it when you come to our store, when you can talk to me in person. Please share and subscribe to the link below. And also you can call me direct at my store, Caitos Nutrition, at 440-349-2480. You can go to our website. They can give you the store hours and the location. And we're going to be trying to do 2 episodes a week. So keep tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for listening.